31 is Intro to Linear Functions. And all I'm going to do is a brief introduction to linear functions because I want to give you a little bit at a time. Okay? So we're going to put functions in parentheses because not all linear equations are functions. Okay? The vertical lines are not functions. So I want to make sure that I put this in parentheses, but stress that we're talking about linear equations. This is the title. I'll give you a second or two to assemble your cells, okay? All right. Remember, I'll put a little asterisk, that linear equations graph straight lines. And we'll talk about how to graph a linear equation, I think Thursday. But linear equations graph straight lines. What do linear equations actually look like? We know they graph straight lines, but Miss Reyes, what do they look like? Great question. What do linear equations look like? Great question. Most linear equations are written in slope-intercept form. And I want to explain this, try to make it, simplify this as much as I possibly can. A form is the way something looks, like maybe perhaps a McDonald's uniform. It might be a certain color. You might have to wear it a certain way. You might have that little arch on the shirt. So a form is the way something actually looks. So most linear equations are going to look a certain way. And that certain way is called slope-intercept form. So not all linear equations are going to look like this. I want to be clear. But most linear equations are going to be written in slope-intercept form. Most of them are going to look like this. So we want to write that down, that most equations, and we're talking about the linear equations, most equations, and I probably should say linear, right? Most linear equations are written or look like in slope-intercept form. It's going to be in this uniform. It's going to look like this. The name of this form that I'm getting ready to show you, or this uniform, is called the slope-intercept form. This is how it's going to look. Slope-intercept form looks like this. Y equals mx plus b. Okay? Where your m and your b are going to be numbers. Okay? The letters m and b are numbers. Pause so you can write, y'all. All right? So m, when we talked about this already, this number is your slope. That's the number that represents your slope. And we talked about another word for slope being rate of change. Okay? So that's going to tell you how steep your line is. If that number is a positive number, that means that your line is going to go up. If your m is a negative number, that means your line is going to graph downward. Okay? If that m is 0 or if it's missing, that means your line is going to be flat because it's no slope or no steepness at all. So this number here tells you the slope. The number that's attached to x is the number that represents the slope. The number that has no variable attached to it is called your y-intercept. The number that has no variable attached to it, you see nothing attached to this number, B, is called your y-intercept. Okay. Your slope, I want to make this clear, is the steepness of a line. Remember, we wrote this definition down before. The letter that represents slope is M, and that's going to be the steepness of the line. Okay. 4 kinds of slope: positive, negative, undefined, zero slope. 4 kinds. That's in your notes, okay? That number is attached to the X. The number that has no variable attached to it is your y-intercept. Your y-intercept, the letter for y-intercept is B. Your y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay? These are most important to a linear function. Your slope, steepness of a line, your y-intercept, where the line crosses the y-axis. Now from this, we're going to do some examples. Our examples look like this, guys. Okay. I've described that this is what linear equations are going to look like. So now I'm going to give you some examples. Your first example, y is equal to, we're going to put 7x plus 2. This is a linear equation, okay, that's written in slope-intercept form because you have y by itself, you have your equal sign, you have your number attached to x, and then you have your number that has no variable attached to it. This is a linear equation that's written in slope-intercept form. This is what a linear equation looks like. My slope of this linear equation is the number that's attached to x, 7. My y-intercept of this linear equation is the number that has no variable attached to it. That's positive 2. Any questions so far? Number 2. Okay. We have y is equal to negative 3x minus 4. This equation is a linear equation that's written in slope-intercept form. Look at y. You have your y is equal to, you have a number attached to x, and you have a number that has no variable attached to it at all. Okay, so here, this is a linear equation that's written in slope-intercept form. Your slope is the number attached to x, that's negative 3. Your y-intercept is the number that have no variable attached to it, which is negative 4. It's a negative 4 because there's a minus in front of the 4. Any questions? Number 3, you have y is equal to 1/2 x minus 5. This is a linear equation that is written in slope-intercept form. This is y. Okay? You have y that's by itself equals. You have a number that's attached to x. and you have a number that has no variable attached to it at all. This is a linear equation that's written in slope-intercept form. Your slope is going to be the number that's attached to x. It's 1/2. Your y-intercept is going to be the number that has no variable attached to it, which is a -5. Last one. Number 4. Y is equal to 8 plus 7x. This equation is linear, okay? This linear equation is written in slope-intercept form, even though b came first and mx came second. That's okay. It's still linear, written in slope-intercept form. M here, the number that's attached to x is a +7. B, the number that has no variable attached to it, is a +8. Any questions about that? I'll let you take your picture if you need to. Slide this up. Yes, you can say, it doesn't matter which one you say first. I could have said B is equal to 8 first, and then M is equal to 7 first. It doesn't matter which one you say first. You're welcome. All right, on the independent